So yeah, the elements in astrology, these are the foundational constituents of all the signs. And beyond astrology, really, if we go into any healing modalities, all healing practices, which astrology is one, really can be distilled into 4, sometimes 5 element theories. So it's a great topic for beginner or advanced students alike. And yeah, we're just going to kind of riff on thoughts, how they've been theorized about, and we can just kind of get into it. 4 element theory, at least, is a Western.
Yeah, we'll start with the Western system. That's probably what we'll explore today.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with fire since I know it so well. And with fire, just understand that it burns. That's what it does. It burns through things, it burns through objects, it burns through people, it burns through everything you can imagine, everything that can catch fire, possibly wood, especially.
Earth.
Earth, yeah, Earth. And it needs to burn. There's something for me with a moon and a fire sign. There's a necessary burning. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, I actually literally always have burned things like books. Well, we talk about, certain types of books, right, that need to be burned.
What else did you burn?
Yeah, sage and
bridges.
And no, I don't burn bridges. I like bridges, except when they need to be burned. That's when I burn them.
Only when it's necessary.
But fire is really, it needs to breathe. It needs air to breathe. And without air, fire, especially people with a lot of fire in their chart, can get too hot, too dehydrated, to the point where, my biggest salve is water. Whether it's the ocean, drinking water, or taking a shower.
It's the antidote in a way.
It's like the antidote.
To excess fire.
Right. Like if you have a child that's, really hot and crying and can't sleep, if that kid has a bunch of fire in their chart, you might just give them a bath every night.
I feel like you can release. I've released emotions through water, especially anger or frustration. It's like if you get just in a pool and float.
That's the best. That's the best. I think one of my favorite things that I did was I found like a little floaty and went to the center of a large lake. It was just there for hours, just like under the sun, but not a strong sun, but just with water all around me. Then I'd dip into the water and come back out and just lie down, swim a bit and come back, But that was being fully with the water element,
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because fire, it burns, and then when it cools off, it evaporates into air, and when it cools off, it becomes earth again through ash. So the next element in the order would be earth. As Taurus comes after Aries. And it's interesting to note that this can be said of all the elements, but no element is actually completely pure. They're all melded and combined together to turn into each element.
Wow.
So it can be said that no element is just
separated or completely distinct, but it's rather all part of the same moving, fluctuating process.
So Earth is interesting because some philosophers actually stated that Earth is the one element that doesn't get changed, in the sense that it temporarily will be turned into the other elements, other states, where it dissolves into water and it burns into fire and it can be moved by air. But at the end of the day, all elements return back to Earth. So in a way, it's like the great stabilizer.
The grounder, that which grounds everything, including us. We're grounded by being on
That's true. Yeah, connecting barefoot to
You
the
belong to,
ground,
yeah.
or even
Grounding is
releasing
huge.
other emotions into the ground. The
Yeah.
grounding practice, like giving it back to the earth.
So the earth can transmute it and give it back to who it belongs to, give the energy back.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other?
What are the challenges of earth? I mentioned some of the challenges of fire.
I know, because my charts don't say earth. The challenges of earth are holding on. I feel like not being able to let go, not being able to flow, control. This also false sense of, maybe it's not false, but just resistance, because earth acts through resistance. And I think one of the challenges then of earth is being too results oriented, because earth is rooted in the practical, the here and the now.
So it needs to see physical evidence.
Yeah.
Of concrete
That's
evidence
its limitation.
of some kind of transformation, some kind of change.
Yeah, but it's its limitation too.
Okay. And the next element, that would it be water? Earth holding.
Well,
water?
it's interesting because after Taurus is Gemini, so in the wheel of at least Western astrology, air comes after Earth, and that's interesting to contemplate if you have any ideas on why.
Yeah. No. Unless I'm thinking of the way that the wind can shape the surface of the earth. Or the air, the movement of air, which would be wind. Or the storms.
The movement of air. Air is actually responsible for the movement of light, which photosynthesis creates Earth. One idea.
So thus, in that sense, it would be something that gives birth to life on the earth.
Yeah,
you could plants, to gardens, to photosynthesis, to
actually the
essences.
It was like Hebrew doctors said that air wasn't an element in their theories. It was actually a medium or glue to all the other elements of earth, fire, water. So the idea that air is this medium and it travels into people and plants and delivers information from the celestial bodies. That's carried through air, and in that sense, air is responsible for light, which allows us to see and perceive and read and understand. It illuminates that kind of mental, that's where it gets this association. Air is associated with like the mental faculties and communication. And air can also be the basis for dreams, some people think, because it's like kind of transmuting that celestial energy through us. And yeah, I like to think of it that way, as this kind of, there's like this luminous quality to air. And
like the creation of thought forms in a more esoteric development.
Yeah.
And thought forms become a reality. Once we ponder that, perhaps there's a heaven. A heaven is created just through thought form. We're almost getting to the alchemical, you know what I mean?
Well, the elements are alchemical.
Yeah. But then it gets, what's that fifth element?
Ether.
Ether. Ether, yeah. That fifth element is very prevalent in the early alchemy.
What is the fifth element besides that movie with Bruce Willis? Was he in that movie?
Yeah.
What, do you have something to say about it? Is it a combination of?
I don't have anything further to say about it at this point. Read up on it for this. But it is. There are some interesting ideas about it that we could probably revisit, hopefully. But I was going to say, with fire, you have passion and you have the spirit. It represents the essence of the spirit of being. So we're moving to earth. Earth is something that holds, that grounds everything, that roots everything here. And then with air, you have maybe the celestial meet, right, between what we are, where we come from, and where we are now. So maybe maybe that was the connection we were getting to. You were
Yeah, the air, it's waves of communication, waves of sense perception, really. So I think the air has like an animating force to it. Fire too. Actually, fire and air by Stoics, they called those the active elements, whereas water and earth would be the passive elements.
yeah, right. Often
Yeah.
it's the masculine, or associated with the masculine, fire and air, and then
Yeah.
water, right, and then water and earth with the feminine.
Or yin. Then after air, at least on our wheel, we go into water.
So water is one of those elements that can be very challenging in a chart, because you think of when someone has a lot of water in their chart and they're living their life, there's almost aspects of themselves that can be drowned or lost, or in the water, the emotional kind of body.
I agree.
Right? And it can be very difficult to keep afloat. I mean, think of the Pisceans and the Cancers, who have a lot of challenges in this world with the everyday, like very more attuned to the etheric or the astral, less attuned to the everyday concrete earthen kind of reality.
They're impressionable. I think water is the most challenging because it's the most impressionable and influenced by the others. Yeah. It literally like changes its shape, and all those studies of water, it will take on the shape of, like, if classical music's playing, it'll make these like beautiful geometric patterns, and metal's playing, it'll like do these like really like fractal
kind. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
No, shards.
Shards is okay. So there's, in a sense, water is something, I think, that's, because of that, there's a formlessness to it. So then it's just taking on what it hears. So it's maybe identity becomes a real issue with water. Identity,
I think, also just knowing what am I feeling that's mine versus what's doesn't even belong to me. So like even discernment within emotion of, am I feeling this because it's something I'm feeling, or I'm feeling this because someone near me or close to me is feeling this?
Is it an authentic emotion? Is it reactive, or is it responsive?
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional body. And I think it's a little deeper. I mean, on some level, I'm kind of the great levelizer. When I observe emotions, I like to say that all emotions are really the same one very specific expression, and it's just the joy of all living, of all life.
I like that. Well, you could say they're all birthed from fire, which is, fire is actually life force energy. Though water is life force energy in that nothing can survive without water, fire is this, everything comes from that initiatory spark of fire.
Spirit.
And spirit. And actually, it was said that there were secrets, to make it alchemical again. It was said there's secrets in the metals, in the stones, in the plants that can only be brought about through being purified with fire. And so in a way, fire is the great medicine to us. It's like the great thing to go to extract these secrets or medicines within the plants and the earth and all these materials around us. It purifies it out to make it alchemical.
Yeah, and then think of the hold on our imagination. Something like fire gazing might have, like gazing in the candle flames, or
sweat lodge. It's kind of air though, but yeah, it's fire.
Yeah, no, it's feeling right. It's like burning out of you almost, because you're feeling. I don't know if they visualize this in sweat lodges, but like fire coursing through. That's something definitely visualization, energy will burn things out of you, right? Visualize the fires going through your breath, breathing it
Yeah.
out, or
It's
clearing.
Kundalini yoga. They do breath of fire, correct?
Oh, maybe so.
Yeah, they have something like that in that practice.
Huh. And then there was another idea I had around fire. I can't remember right now, but we'll come back to it.
Something I wanted to bring up now that we kind of worked through the basics of the four elements is really interesting. My favorite film growing up was The Wizard of Oz. And obviously that movie has so much depth to it.
Well,
I didn't even know
there's a lot of
why I
layers
liked it, but
there's programming in it, there's all kinds of stuff in it.
yeah, there's a lot of alchemical wisdom in the sense that like the four characters, Dorothy represents Earth. She's the one who's like on this pursuit trying to find home. And it's like she's on this Earth-based pursuit. Where is home? Where is home? Everything is uprooted in the beginning in the tornado. And then you have these characters she meets along the way. Scarecrow, who is looking for a brain. He's air. He's looking for this mental faculty made of straw. And he's like, if I only had a brain. The Tin Man's like, if I only had a heart. Yet there's various scenes in the part with the Tin Man where he's all rusted because he's been crying. So it's interesting because actually all the characters have the elements that they think they're lacking. They're just out of balance.
That's interesting.
And then the lion, he's like, if only I had courage, if only I had fire. And Leo the lion, that's kind of a.
So then what was Scarecrow's?
Air, water, fire. She's the earth.
Oh, and then the Tin Man. Yeah. What is the heart? Is that?
Emotion, water.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
And so it's interesting because they all actually have the elements that they're seeking, but they all work together to so all the elements actually really just need to work together. Every problem or issue in astrology via a transit or in a relationship can be boiled down to their elemental problems, their elemental things that need to be resolved.
What's missing?
So you almost do like a feng shui where you can like bring in the elements to mediate. And in Chinese astrology, they actually do have that. Like they consider it like you do home feng shui. If you live in an elemental house, say you're a metal person, you have a house that's very metal, to use in Chinese element.
It's correct to have a metal house?
No, it could be too much. It depends though. It really depends on the rest of your Batsi chart and whatnot. Yeah. But you would bring in maybe a water element, you bring in earth element to keep the balance. So in astrology, when you're looking at a transit or you're looking at like a difficult aspect between maybe you and a boss, coworker, anyone, you would think of like, okay, this is like an elemental difference that we're navigating.
Maybe we don't have enough earth and we need to bring in a crystal to put on this between.
For us?
No.
Yes.
The boss or something. Maybe on your desk, you put a crystal, if you're lacking earth, you put stones or crystals, right?
Yeah.
If you're lacking air, you have a little fountain or something with water flowing.
Yeah, it's pretty simple like that.
Yeah.
Pretty magical too. I mean, you're literally using these talismans to create balance and harmony and
amulets. Talismanic would be a little different. Well, I think there'd be a little difference between talismans and amulets. Okay. Amulets would be I think it would be more to protect your energy and balance it. The talismans might be something more like this, where there's a specific intention embedded in the sigil. Oh, okay. Right? That would be more talismanic. But it's nice to see that distinction, between intention and between just severing.
Thank you for that magical distinction, definition. It's good to define that. Yeah, it's cool too because the witch loans Dorothy these ruby red slippers.
Yeah, ruby.
And the red, right. Well, the red being this. Well, you can talk about ruby, but I was thinking the red of like the root chakra. She's looking for home. She's looking for that like grounding. That's my riff.
She never. There's so many levels to that film. I mean, you can even look at it through like Glinda being representative of Dorothy's higher self. Of Dorothy being the fourth witch. Not all the witches are shared in the film. There's the two bad witches, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Glinda, the good witch,
Yeah.
and it's all by north and south and east and west, because the Mad
Okay.
Witches are east and west, and then Dorothy, I think, is from the south, and then the North Witch is Glinda. So Dorothy is a witch all along as well, and then also the idea that she never goes anywhere because, and the film even shows this by going black and white, that it was a dream,
Oh yeah.
right? Or it's black and white, then it becomes color. So she's dreaming the whole time. It's all her. And then all the characters are aspects, either different incarnations of her, or different aspects of her incarnations, or different aspects of her higher self, her experience here. There's so many ways to look at that.
That movie's deep. That story is deep.
Well, I mean, there's books and books to it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, not just one book. But
do you know much about Frank L. Baum? Was he?
there might be. I don't remember if he was. I don't want to like quote this, but he might have been like. I mean, obviously, I'll just say this: that he was really aware.
We'll just leave it at that.
Arcane and deep knowledge.
He was hit.
Colors. And
He was hit.
I don't know if I like the word hit, but yeah, but he had access.
He had access. He was initiated.
You know, whether
to
like,
these mysteries.
whether he had a library or he had access to library, but there were some mysteries that were.
Whether he had access to librarians.
And then even think of the film The Wiz. There's great depth in that film as well. Whoever made that film with Michael Jackson.
I watched all the
characters.
versions. I watched Return to Oz. I watched The Wiz.
Oh, I didn't see Return to Oz.
The one I didn't get into was Wicked. That's like the most modern.
I heard that was really something as well. For some reason, like every version of it is very powerful and very well done.
I think it's because they're dealing with these very like foundational archetypes and philosophies and principles.
The Wiz was incredible. I mean, it actually visually, literally showed the higher self taking everything in at the end of the film. Like I think it's even more incredible than the story sometimes. I should watch the film again.
I do like that one.
It's like powerful. It's very powerful. So what else? Anything else on the elements? There's something I wanted to say about fire that I forgot.
Well, I think we riffed a lot kind of on them esoterically. Maybe we could talk about how do they show up in excess or maybe deficiency in individuals.
That sounds good.
Like personality-wise, they're navigating life.
Awesome. I start with myself.
Go for it.
So someone who might have a lot of fire and air might be someone who has trouble being grounded or finding ground, and they might just get too excited running and kind of
it's
going
subjective.
through things.
Yeah, it's more of a subjective way of navigating through fire and air. Well, maybe not air. No, fire and water are. Go on.
So, so it might be that they have a hard time getting settled and finding ground and stabilizing. And there could be this impulse to burn through everything really quickly, or get rushed, or get too passionate about this or that and go in too many directions and have a more chaotic kind of life, right? Because passion seeks adventure. And the problem with chaos in a relationship to fire is that the more order you have in your life, the more boring it could be. And the more chaos you have, the more exciting it could be.
Yeah, it's like not inspiring if it doesn't have.
But either one is like too much.
Totally. We can extreme polarize with that.
Yeah.
I would say, do you have another view?
No, I'll just do that example. Like, and if they don't have enough water, then they have trouble empathizing with others and really being attuned to what's going on in their environment emotionally.
They're just like acting.
Picking up nuances. Yeah, there's not enough reflection, or there's not enough, not necessarily reflection, that'd be air, but not enough empathy, yeah. Or sense of what others are going through.
How will this affect someone else?
Yes.
Or can I put myself in the other person's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too little fire, though. If you don't have enough fire, I would say it manifests as, like the lion in The Wizard of Oz. It's like not enough almost self-esteem. I don't want to go call it self-esteem, but kind of self-esteem. There's not enough almost like bravery or courage to be like, I can do this. I can go out and do this on my own and be this kind of leader. So too little fire might manifest as like a lack of motivation.
That makes sense.
Like a lack of feeling like capable.
That makes sense.
And then too little air is pretty obvious. There's not enough like thought put in, I guess, or there's not enough analytical
reflection or thinking through, maybe
planning. Yeah, well, planning might be more earth, but air is definitely like abstracting, like the ability to abstract,
to detach.
Yeah,
which can be dangerous in itself if they're too detached.
I have no air in my chart though, actually.
You know what I've heard about no air in the chart? This
What?
is fascinating, especially with you. I've heard that, and this is one of those anomalies, those astrological anomalies, kind of like with Cancer and Pisces being kind of weak and flowy sometimes, whereas Scorpio's always been a tough sign, and it's water as well. So the other anomaly I heard is that with people who supposedly have no air, sometimes they turn out to be the most airy people.
Oh, you like almost I know that, like, you compensate.
Yeah, there's some kind of compensation.
People are always surprised when I tell them I'm like, I have no air, because like a lot of what I do is super airy. But here's where I say the compensation comes in. It's compensation, but I would say in my specific chart example, I think it might play out because depending on what house system you use, my stellium is in the 11th. So my stellium is in an airy house.
Aquarius,
Yeah, so it gives the like tone of air without any of the planets being in air. So I think if you're using houses like that, you can kind of, because you could argue we all have all the elements. You're not like me saying I don't have air in my chart. It's kind of a misnomer because we have all the elements. There is an air house in my chart, and actually it's occupied by like nearly all the planets.
Sure.
So it's interesting, but I would say maybe it weighs more when you have the planets in the elemental signs versus just reading it house based.
Yeah, I mean it is more of an emphasis, the sign over the house. But I would say in agreement that, like for me, example, I'm mostly fire and air, but I have a bunch of planets in water houses.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of gives it flavors it up, or it gives me as or it kind of makes the destination or the destiny of those planetary energies to be more water, to learn to be more compassionate and empathetic and aware of others.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Slows it down or cools it off, rather.
It makes sense, for sure.
What's another example? How about a person who's all water and has no...
Bless their heart. I mean, that could be like you use the word drowning. I mean, that could be intense. It is said, specifically of Pisces energy, that it can almost turn into, when it's not consciously dealt with, it can go into like sublimation via substances, because water can be so impressionable, as we mentioned before. So they would have to almost balance through finding their inner fire, their inner earth, because water, it's
slow. It's very slow.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily slow. It's actually considered to be damp and cold if we're using it.
Yeah, that's right. Cold.
Damp and
that's
cold.
Right. Yeah, not necessarily slow, but. And I heard with air, it doesn't help. Like air does not help water.
Well, it would evaporate it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
But it could also, so that kind of reminds me of in Chinese astrology, I like how they have the 5 elements, and it's this wheel of, there's destructive relationships between the elements, meaning, air evaporating water. And then there's constructive relationships, meaning that earth produces metal, I think it is. So because you like kind of dig up stones and minerals or whatever. And deposits. So this idea that there's like 2 ways and there's 2 kind of like cycles of feeding into one another, and one is supposedly destructive, one's more constructive. So even just tuning into that through Chinese astrology is interesting. Like knowing what your element is, because we all have an animal, but also knowing the elements of that animal,
right?
And how it plays with like the other elements.
Yeah, no, it's an endless investigation. There's so much depth to understanding the elements and understanding how you yourself are using the elements to bridge gaps in yourself and
to do alchemy.
Yeah, to do alchemy on yourself. Yeah. I mean, I know how much water I need, like desperately. I don't always get it, you know, but I need it, you know, and I love it. It really revitalizes me when I have it.
Yeah.
Know?
Or even some people, like, they just connect to the ocean. They connect to the ocean. Maybe they have a lot of water in their chart. Maybe they don't, but it's like certain places in nature can evoke those elements for people. And I think of herbalism, I study herbalism as well, and it's fascinating because it's the idea that when we ingest these herbs, the elements within that medicine is interacting with the elements in our body. And hopefully bringing about some sort of harmonizing, balancing act.
Yeah, especially spagyrics and plant essence, flower essences, the subtle planes, the subtle energies that we're tapping into when we take it. It's very powerful, especially for those of us involved in the subtle planes.
I would say that would be people with more air and water would maybe need, like, respond more readily to things like flower essences. Flower essences, by the way, and if you don't know, are just plants placed in water in sunlight or moonlight and extracted for a few hours via the sunlight, moonlight, and then the flower's taken out, and they're so gentle and subtle. They're working, you know, I mean, we are, if you think about it, we are these electromagnetic water beings as humans. But some people, like people who have a sturdier constitution, maybe they have a lot of earth or fire in their chart, they might not respond as well to a flower essences. They might need like an alcohol tincture. They might need a more extracted form of a medicine to like really feel it. But maybe people who are more attuned to the like water and airy elements respond more to that subtler type of medicine.
Yeah, well explained.
Whereas if you burn something and smoke it, you're like, smoking is actually the most intense way to take a plant because it crosses that blood-brain barrier way faster, and it's like instantaneous.
But I've had like, I've taken, I forgot what it's called right now, but something sublingual where it just like rested and absorbed through salvia, I think. Yeah, salvia. I've before, and I remember holding it in my mouth because you have to hold it 3 times for like 5 minutes or something.
You have to like chew and masticate it and almost hold the saliva in your mouth without swallowing.
And I remember like I was holding it and then I started to waver, like my knees started to collapse.
Whoa!
So I had to run out and spit it out.
Yeah, it's hard.
And then drop on the couch. Just
yeah, no, I mean, people do. It's funny you bring that as an example because I worked in an herb shop where we sold it, and people think, oh, you smoke it, but actually the plant, according to where it comes from and is grown in Mexico, a lot of the shamans say the plant doesn't actually really want to be burned. And the reason people have such heavy, heady, dissociative, uncomfortable experiences with smoking it is because they're not taking it in the way it's traditionally meant to be ingested, which is through the saliva. Chewing.
I didn't chew, but I just had the tincture version of it.
Yeah, they make tinctures. Like traditionally, they take the leaf, you pack it in your mouth, chew it, hold the saliva in, and your like whole mouth is green, and you like kind of spit it after enough time has passed. But it is because it kind of just goes to show, like, even in the preparation, you consider the elements. Like, how does that plant want to be ideally, you know, alchemized?
So back to the elements in the chart. What about a person? What about a person who's like all air? Can they actually connect with people? Are they robots? You know, like how does that?
I know. I want to be like robot. I want to be cruel with that.
And it's rare, I want to say, that people are just like one element, but it's not rare.
No, I'm not, but I have a lot of them.
I think it's common in your period of, you know,
that's
well, the outer planets can sometimes get together at certain points, and if they're all in one element, they're all
I would say that
they're all in one sign.
the
you know?
reason there's reasoning to it
Yeah.
because we have this generation with the Uranus, Neptune, and Capricorn.
Right.
And there's this archaic revival happening where it is like back to the earth, back to the land. And it's necessary given the state of like where the world is right now, that earth element is being kind of brought forth generationally through air, through Uranus. Which
Interesting.
Through technology.
How? Through technology?
Well, it's like we're sharing about back to the earth practices like through this technological internet web.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot
yeah.
of people blogging about it. There's a lot of people,
which is coming about because all this is going to move out of Earth and it's going to go to air.
And that's scary. What do you have to say about that?
Oh, here we go. I mean, by 2026, 2027, which is, the Pluto interregnum. Human design talks about
Neptune
2027.
Neptune Aries.
Well,
Dude.
Uranus and Taurus, Pluto and Aquarius.
Uranus and Taurus I think Uranus and Taurus is exciting. I think there's some exciting motivations.
But Uranus and Taurus will go into Gemini. 2026, 2025, and then it'll sit in there 2027 for sure.
I think we're already culturally, to answer the air question, what is it like with too much air? Well, our society is going there.
Oh, we live in an air society. The United States is pure air. It's all, culturally you can see the difference in terms of like Native Americans who will meet and they won't say anything. They'll just linger about. Whereas our culture, we get together and we need to talk each other's heads off.
Like this right here.
Yeah, talking heads. What are we doing? Right.
We're doing it, so
it's a part of this culture. This is the process right now.
How to get back in the body.
How can we get back in our body and be embodied?
And with that, well, dude.
How do you say that?